For more than 60 years, Brooks turned chaos into architecture. Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein. The producers behind every outrageous gag was precision, timing, rhythm, trust. He ran his sets like clockwork, wearing clown shoes. If one cog squeaked too loud, he replaced it mid-spin. Because in Mel's universe, comedy was math disguised as madness. He hired and fired with surgical calm. Hire, fire. Fire, hire. Keep the rhythm alive. Some actors learned the rule. Some ignored it. A few never realized there was one until it was too late. And Mel Brooks, with that mischievous grin and razor memory, remembered every single one. These are 5 actors Mel Brooks never forgave. Each story is a masterclass in ego, trust, and what happens when chaos stops being funny. 1. Frank Langella, the Broadway king who brought gravitas to a slapstick war. Frank Langella looked perfect on paper. Tall, magnetic, thunder in his voice, the very image of Dracula. On Broadway, audiences gasped at his dark charm. So, when Brooks began developing Dracula, Dead and Loving It, the studios saw destiny. Langella was already the vampire. What could go wrong? Everything. Brooks wasn't building a Gothic cathedral. He was building a funhouse. He wanted a Dracula who could monologue one moment and slip on a candelabrum the next. Langella arrived reciting Shakespeare. From the first rehearsal, the tone cracked. He spoke each line like scripture, unmoved by the absurdity swirling around him. Crew members whispered, "Is this a comedy or an opera?" Brooks tried notes, gentle nudges, even jokes. Nothing pierced the armor. Langella treated punchlines as blasphemy. The breaking point came during a test read. Brooks handed him a new line, a classic Brooks twist. Solemn build-up, ridiculous payoff. Langella paused, frowned, and asked, "Do you want me to mock the text?" Mel stared for a beat and replied, "No, I want you to survive it." By week's end, Frank Langella was gone, quietly replaced by Leslie Nielsen, who treated parody with the straight face of a funeral director. That was Brooks's genius. The louder the chaos, the calmer the center had to be. Nielsen understood. Langella didn't. Officially, it was creative differences. In truth, Mel refused to arm wrestle a marble statue into dancing. Langella left without public bitterness. Brooks never mentioned his name again. When interviews later brought up Dracula, Dead and Loving It, Brooks used one word for Nielsen, perfect. No follow --. I and Brooks's world. Actors either elevated the madness or got buried beneath it. Langella came crowned in gravitas. Mel Brooks was making a carnival, not a coronation. 2. Gene Wilder, the brother who broke the circle. Some betrayals don't come from enemies, they come from the people you trusted to finish your sentences. Gene Wilder was more than an actor to Brooks. He was the other half of the same joke. Together, they detonated Hollywood's idea of comedy. The producers Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein. Their rhythm was telepathic. Mel would start a scene half-formed. Gene would end it with a line that sounded inevitable. Then came Young Frankenstein. Wilder had written most of the script. Brooks shaped and directed it, fought studios to keep it in black and white, and turned it into legend. But when the laughter faded, a hairline fracture appeared. Gene had another script, The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes's smarter brother. He wanted to write, direct, and star, and he wanted Mel to produce. Brooks said no, not because it wasn't funny, but because he believed Wilder wasn't ready to direct. "I thought he was," Mel would later say, "but I knew he wasn't." Wilder took it as betrayal. He expected encouragement. Brooks gave distance. That distance became silence. Wilder made the film without him, bringing along familiar faces, Marty Feldman, Madeline Kahn, but the magic felt fractured. Timing slightly off, warmth diluted. No public fight followed, just 2 geniuses orbiting opposite suns. Brooks confided to a friend, "It was like watching your brother pack up and leave home, except he took your best joke with him." Years later they met again at an event neither expected. No apology, no drama, a handshake, a few soft laughs. The friendship mended politely, but the partnership never did. Brooks once admitted Gene was the only actor he trusted with unfinished thoughts. After Smarter Brother, that trust evaporated. Not from anger, from disappointment. In public, they remained gracious. In private, the line had snapped. Because the person who knows your rhythm best is also the one who can throw it offbeat with a single step. And Brooks never invited anyone back once they stepped out twice. 3. Chevy Chase, the comedian who couldn't share the stage. Mel Brooks could feel an actor's energy before the first line. With Chevy Chase, his instinct screamed no. In the 1980s, studios begged Brooks to cast box office names. Chevy was huge, SNL, Caddyshack, Fletch. His deadpan timing and smirk printed money. On paper, he was perfect. On a Brooks set, he would have been disaster. Brooks's first rule, trust the rhythm. Comedy was ensemble jazz, everyone hits the beat, everyone listens. Chase, in Mel's eyes, played solos that he'd seen it, the interviews, the backstage whispers. Chase was fast, brilliant, and merciless. He could make a room laugh, and then freeze it cold with the next line. Brooks reportedly told one casting director, he's not acting, he's waiting for everyone to stop talking so he can prove he's the smartest in the room. The biggest near miss came during Spaceballs. Studios floated Chevy for Dark Helmet. Brooks barely entertained it. He wanted Rick Moranis. Rick knows when to step back, Mel said later. Chevy only knows how to interrupt. That single distinction defined Brooks's philosophy. Comedy wasn't about who won the laugh, it was about who made the next laugh possible. Privately, he described Chevy as a crasher, a man who ran into jokes instead of dancing with them. Chase's irony, his knowing smirk, broke the illusion Brooks needed. To Brooks, absurdity only works when everyone believes it. Chase was too self-aware. You could see him thinking. Their only meeting was brief, stiff, polite. Mel ended it with a smile and one line, maybe in another universe. Later, when asked about actors too self-conscious for his films, Brooks smiled and said, some people watch themselves acting when they should just act. The interviewer asked if he meant Chevy Chase. Brooks smiled again and moved on. Chase was never blacklisted. He just never fit the chemistry. Because in Mel Brooks's universe, chaos was welcome, but ego dressed as confidence stayed outside the door. 4. Harvey Korman, the sketch legend who tested the conductor. On screen, Harvey Korman was gold.in Blazing Saddles, High Anxiety History of the World. Part 1, he was Brooks's reliable thunderclap, ridiculous and majestic at once. Few actors could hold a pompous expression for 5 seconds longer than logic allowed, then explode into perfect hysteria. But behind the scenes, their chemistry was combustible. Korman came from the Carol Burnett show, where improvisation was gospel. Sketch comedy lived on freedom. You Chase laughs, rewrote mid-scene, followed impulse. Brooks's sets were different, meticulously choreographed symphonies. Every beat had a metronome. Deviate, and the whole rhythm stuttered. During High Anxiety, Korman's improviser instincts collided with Mel's conductor's baton. Korman wanted to rebuild his character, Dr. Montague, from scratch, new ticks, new lines, entire rewrites. Brooks stopped him cold. We already wrote the funny part. We just need you to do it. Korman bristled. The set turned tense. He'd pause between takes, debate blocking, question motivation. Crew members called it passive warfare. No shouting, no tantrums, just every line delivered through gritted patience. Brooks confided mid-shoot, Harvey wants to be the director. I already have that job. By the final week, they barely spoke directly. Notes went through assistants. Lunches became solitary. The movie worked. Korman was too skilled to let friction show, but the cost lingered. After High Anxiety, Mel quietly stopped calling. No scandal, no grudge, just fatigue. Some actors bring joy, Brooks said once. Harvey brought brilliance and resistance. Every day felt like a tug-of-war. They stayed publicly gracious, praising each other for years. Yet they never reunited on film. The rhythm had broken, and Brooks built his career on rhythm. He could choreograph chaos. He couldn't conduct rebellion. When collaboration starts to feel like combat, even comedy becomes work. And Mel Brooks never wanted to wage war for a punchline. 5. Jerry Lewis, the genius Brooks refused to tame. Mel Brooks admired genius, but not the kind that stared in the mirror while everyone else rehearsed. Jerry Lewis was that contradiction, revolutionary performer, impossible collaborator. Both men were architects of absurdity, writer, director, star, twin towers of comic control. For years, studios dreamed of pairing them. It never happened. Privately, Brooks called Lewis brilliant and exhausting. He respected the nutty professor and the legacy, but he didn't respect the man. Lewis's reputation for domineering sets, rewriting on the fly, and demanding absolute attention clashed with everything Brooks valued. In the mid-1980s, during early development of Life Stinks, the studio pitched Jerry for a major supporting role. They promised prestige. Mel refused. "I don't need someone who thinks he's funnier than the film," he said flatly. They met once, dinner arranged by mutual friends. Brooks arrived curious. Lewis arrived late. He launched into a 15-minute monologue about the future of American comedy, barely acknowledging Mel across the table. Brooks listened, smiled politely, and left early. Later he told friends, he didn't want to collaborate. He wanted applause. That was enough. No calls, no offers, no second chances. Publicly, both men remained civil. Privately, Mel considered him a walking detonation. He once joked in private, "If someone thinks he's the center of the universe, he can't work in mine. I already have a son." Because that was Brooks's cosmos, a galaxy of ensemble players orbiting a single principle: trust the rhythm. Jerry Lewis couldn't orbit anything but himself, and even geniuses get quietly banned when they mistake the set for a mirror.